Hello everyone, and welcome to my Soap Twist 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Luna uttered 6 words of help before sinking into the sea. Those 6 words were faint, nearly lost in the pounding of waves against the yacht's hull, but they cut through the night like a blade. Please don't let me die tonight. Then the dark water closed around her head, and she vanished. The moon hung low and swollen above the Pacific, the same color as the old Hollywood moon that always seemed to accompany the Forresters when tragedy struck. It covered the deck of Steffi's yacht in silver and shadow, giving the blood on the railing the appearance of spilled ink. Nobody moved at first. Nobody breathed. Everyone had heard her. 6 words. Luna Nozawa, the girl who had spent months poisoning, manipulating, and destroying, made a plea so little and impossibly weak that it felt obscene. Steffi was the first to break. She leaped at the rail, her scream primal and animalistic. Luna! Luna! The name ripped out of her like something was born wrong. Finn was half a second behind her, already kicking off his shoes and calculating the drop, current, and water temperature at this late in the year. He would have gone in without thinking, like he had once run into gunfire for Steffi, but Ridge's arm was clamped around his chest like iron. "You'll never find her in the dark," Ridge said, his voice shaking. "We called the Coast Guard. Now." Hope stood transfixed near the bar cart, the bottle of champagne still dangling between her fingers. When Luna toppled over, the glass shattered, and Hope had no idea. She could only see Luna's face in that final second, wide-eyed, lipstick smudged, mascara running down her cheeks, no longer the polished villainess who had drugged her own mother and framed Brooke for murder. Simply a worried girl who had run out of lies. 6 words. Liam stood beside Hope, his face devoid of color. "She said please," he muttered, as if it were impossible. Luna had never said please. Not when she kissed him, when Steffi was gone. Not when she locked Brooke in the steam room of Il Giardino. Not when she stood in the Forrester living room and told them all, with her frightening little smile, that she was Poppy's daughter and that everything they thought they knew was incorrect. She'd never asked for anything. She'd only taken. And now she'd begged. Carter was already on the satellite phone, blasting coordinates into the receiver, his customary composure shattered. Female overboard, about 25 years old, black hair, wearing a red dress, yeah. Conscious when she went under, she was chatting. "I'm not sure if she can swim, just get here." He threw the phone down and glanced at the others with furious eyes. "They are launching a helicopter." 15 minutes. In 15 minutes, the hypothermia would start to shut her down. In 15 minutes, the riptide that raced off this stretch of Malibu beachfront could drag a body 3 miles offshore. In 15 minutes, Luna may be. No one finished the notion. Steffi collapsed on her knees on the teak deck, fingers scrabbling at nothing, as if she could reach through the wood and pull Luna back up with sheer force. "I pushed her," she said, sobbing. "I didn't mean. I was so angry. She was laughing about my mother, about everything she said she should have finished the job when she had the chance." Finn crouched alongside her, putting his arms around his wife even as his own body trembled with the impulse to dive. "You defended your family, Steffi. She approached you with a letter opener." "It doesn't matter." Steffi's voice erupted into a howl. She went over the railing backwards. Ridge's face crumbled as he noticed she had hit her head and there was blood. He suddenly appeared 20 years older, the creases around his eyes deepened by moonlight. His granddaughter, since that was the twist that had destroyed them all only hours before, had just begged for her life in 6 words before disappearing beneath the black waves. Brooke approached him, reaching for his hand. He allowed her to take it, but his gaze remained riveted on the sea. "She's a fighter," Brooke stated gently. "Like her mother." "Don't," Ridge snapped. "Don't you attempt to compare them. I am not. I'm claiming Luna learned how to survive from somewhere." Even Brooke struggled to finish the phrase. On the bottom deck, RJ sat on the stairs, his head in his hands. He hadn't noticed Luna come over. He'd been inside buying ice. He'd heard the screams and dashed outside in time to see the red flash of her clothing go. All he could do now was repeat their last conversation, 2 hours ago, when she cornered him in the galley and told him, voice shaking with something that could have been genuine regret, that she had never intended to hurt him. That everything she had done was to protect her mother. She said she loved him. He had not believed her. He told her she was unwell, that she needed assistance. Maybe if he'd listened. Zen stood at the rail, studying the lake with binoculars that shook in his hand. Every few seconds he whispered, "Come on, come on, come on," as if praying. Thomas stood unnaturally still, arms pulled tightly across his chest, and his mouth tightened so hard it appeared painful. Hope kept looking at him, waiting for the explosion, but it never happened. When she finally touched his arm, he flinched, as if burned. She planned all of it, he continued, his voice lifeless. They kissed. The medicines. The letters. She played me like a fiddle for months. And 5 minutes before she entered the water, she looked me in the eye and said, "I never faked it with you, Thomas. Not once." Hope had no idea what to say. The helicopter arrived in 12 minutes, not 15. Its lighting swept the water in harsh white arcs, transforming the sea into a sparkling, unforgiving mirror. A rescue swimmer dropped onto a cable, vanished, reappeared, and shook his head. Again. Again. Every negative shake was a hammer strike. Steffi was sobbing openly now, snuggling up against Finn's chest. He hugged her, but his gaze never left the light on the lake. When a patient collapsed, he was counting seconds between waves, calculating drift, and performing triage in his brain like he did in the ER. He knew what the odds were. They all did. The swimmer then surfaced, clutching something red in his gloved hand. Luna's stilettos. Steffi let forth an unearthly scream. They hunted till morning. The Coast Guard cutters joined the yacht, followed by the sheriff's marine unit. Divers went down in groups. The tide was going out. If she had been asleep when she hit the ocean, she could have already made it halfway to Catalina. The call came over the radio at 6:07 a.m. as the sun bled orange across the horizon. Sighting the body. 1 mile south. Female. Dark hair. Red dress. They carried her up in a basket. Finn was the first to arrive as they winched her onto the deck of the rescue boat. He went to his knees, tilted her head back, and began compressions before the swimmer had even removed his fins. Her skin was marble white, her lips blue, and a gash on her left temple still oozed pink into her hair. Seaweed knotted in the strands, like a terrible crown. Steffi stood behind him, both hands over her mouth, tears running down her face. "Come on, Luna," Finn mumbled between breaths. "You do not get to die. Not like this. Come on." 2 rounds of CPR. Nothing. The paramedic took over, inserting a tube down her neck and inflating lungs that had been devoid of oxygen for who knows how long. 3rd round. A cough. Her body rose off the deck, accompanied by a nasty, wet, retching cough. Water and bile came out of her lips. Her eyes sprung up, pupils dilated, and the sound she made was scarcely human, simply primal panic, pain, and the will to survive that had kept her treading water for 7 hours in 50-degree waves with a head injury. Steffi went to her knees next to the stretcher. "Luna," she muttered. "Oh my God, Luna." Luna's glance found her unfocused and agitated. She attempted to speak, but the tube silenced her. Everything that came out was a broken sob. Her hand, trembling fiercely, stretched up and grabbed Steffi's with startling force. Finn examined her pulse. It was strong, too rapid, but there. He glanced up at the paramedic and nodded once. She was back. Luna's eyelids drifted as they lifted the stretcher toward the chopper. For a brief while, they focused on Steffi's face. Even though the tube kept her mute, Steffi noticed her mouth create the same 6 syllables again, this time slower and more deliberate. "Please do not let me die tonight." Steffi gripped her hand. "You're not dying," she screamed. "Not tonight. Not ever if I have anything to say about it." The chopper flew off, transporting Luna to UCLA's trauma center, where she would find machines and warm blankets and begin the long, grueling path to physical and emotional recovery. The The family on the yacht stood silently as the helicopter shrank to a speck against the morning sky. Nobody knew how to feel. Relief clashed with fury, and remorse with astonishment. Luna had attempted to ruin them all piece by piece, using smiles and mints laced with God knows what, as well as falsehoods so exquisite that they nearly felt true. And yet, 6 words. In the end, 6 sentences contained enough humanity to draw her back from the sea. Hope eventually spoke with a little voice. "She's going to live," Ridge confirmed. His voice sounded gravelly. "And then she's going to prison for the rest of it." Steffi glanced at the barren horizon where the chopper had vanished. "Maybe," she replied gently. But tonight, she was just Luna. Scared. Alone. Begging. Finn wrapped his arm around her waist. "You saved her, Steph." "No," Steffi responded quietly. "She saved herself." Luna drifted in and out of consciousness in the trauma bay, surrounded by constant monitoring. Every time she awoke, the same image played, the cold closing over her head, the certainty of death, and the 6 words she had forced past her lips because some tiny, stubborn part of her still hoped someone would care enough to listen. And somebody had. The tide had snatched her falsehoods, her schemes, and her meticulously crafted mask. It had reduced her to nothing more than a girl who refused to die. 6 words. 6 words might sometimes be all it takes to change everything. They can be enough to earn you a second opportunity when you don't deserve one. Only time will tell which one Luna would choose. But for now, she took a breath. Inside and outside. Alive. And somewhere across the Pacific, the moon finally set, content. The wind had changed in a way Luna couldn't ignore. It raked across the Pacific like invisible claws, flattening wave crests one moment and flinging them high the next. She tightened her grip on the small boat's railing, attempting to maintain her balance as another swell swept beneath her feet. Thomas had warned her that this stretch of shoreline could become unpredictable at any time, but she hadn't anticipated it to turn violent so quickly. The Forrester family had faced with storms before, both metaphorical and actual, but this one had a peculiar undercurrent. Something urgent. Something chilly. She had come out here to clear her mind after everything that had happened in Los Angeles, after the arguments and secrets, and the constant pressure to choose sides in a world she wasn't sure she completely fit in. The ocean always helped her think. But now, peering out at bruised clouds pushing low above the lake, she wished she had remained on land. The boat leaned sharply. Luna lurched sideways, catching herself on a metal cleat embedded in the wood. Her breath caught. She searched the horizon. There are no other vessels. No help. The marina was far behind her. A quiver of panic erupted in her chest. She'd never been terrified of the water before. Not during childhood vacations with her mother, school trips, or even the first time she swam out farther than she should have. But tonight the sea appeared different, almost alive with intent, and she felt dreadfully little in its grandeur. She removed her phone from her pocket. No service. Her throat clenched. "Okay," she said to herself. "Keep calm. Turn around. Head back." But as she reached for the ignition, another wave slammed into the hull, bigger than the one before it. The boat lurched, throwing her to the deck. When her elbow hit the wood, she felt pain. She cursed beneath her breath. The sky darkened another shade, and the clouds became the color of damp steel. A churning wall of water rose in the distance, moving toward her like a live force. No, no, no. She climbed to her knees, holding the edge of the console as the first droplets of rain fell, slow, fat, and freezing. She twisted the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, then died. "Come on." She tried again. Nothing. Another wave pulled the boat up and then lowered it, slamming it down again. Luna held back a cry. This cannot be happening. Not like this. Not out here. She stood unsteadily, attempting to grab the emergency radio, but the boat overturned again, harder this time, and she slipped. Her shoulder struck the railing. Sharp pain spread down her arm. She sucked in a breath, forced herself to concentrate. The radio. She needed to issue a mayday, Even if no one responded, she could at least try. She pulled herself to her feet again, grasping the railing to stay balanced. Wind ripped at her hair, whipping it across her face. She squinted against the salt spray and took one step after another. Another wave slammed over the bow, dumping icy water across the deck. Luna gasped as the cold hit her flesh. The boat groaned at the impact. She held onto the railing with both hands. Her thoughts raced. She could almost hear Poppy's voice. Her mother had often warned her that storms might transform the sea from friend to foe in minutes. She should have listened. She should have checked the weather. She should never have come out alone. But she was here now, and she had no choice but to fight through it. The boat bucked strongly again, and she was thrown on her hands and knees. She crawled the remaining distance to the console, fingers quivering as she groped for the radio switch. Lightning flashed overhead, briefly turning the sky white. Thunder slammed so close that it felt like a fist slamming on her chest. She switched the switch. The radio remained silent. No. Her voice cracked. Please. She asked again. Nothing. The boat rocked, perhaps mocking her attempts. For a brief while, she froze, the storm screaming around her and the cold rain searing her skin like needles. She felt helpless, caught between the fierce sky and the swelling waves. She could almost hear Lee's severe words echoing through her mind, or RJ instructing her not to withdraw herself when she was unhappy. But she had desired silence. She had wanted to flee. Instead, the waves swallowed her peace entirely. She pressed a hand to her forehead, trying to think and breathe. The panic was tugging at her throat more harder than before. She had to do something, anything, before it was too late. A sharp and strong shock knocked her sideways. As the boat dipped violently to port, she smacked the deck and cried out in pain. The horizon swirled. The railing came dangerously close to the sea. No, stay up. Stay up. Another swell came from the opposite way, lifting the boat at a terrible angle. The deck tilted beneath her. Her legs slid. Her fingers clutched desperately across the smooth wood. Help! She shouted into the wind, knowing no one would hear her. Hey! Somebody! The boat kept tilting. A massive wave slammed against the hull, tipping the boat on its side. Luna's hand slipped. She slipped toward the edge, looking for something to grab onto. Her fingertips grasped the railing for a fleeting second, but the following surge ripped it from her grasp. She was tossed in the water. The cold struck like a hammer. Her breath disappeared. Her limbs froze. Salt burnt her eyes and filled her lips as she descended below the surface. Darkness enveloped her. She kicked hard, pushed her way up, and gasped as she burst through the waves. The upturned boat floated a few yards away, flung like a toy. She battled to keep above the water, battling the tide that pushed her backward. Her heart pounded in her chest, every pulse loud and desperate. She attempted to swim toward the boat, but the waves continued to drive her away. Lightning flashed again, revealing the towering surges surrounding her. Thunder rattled the atmosphere. Rain pummeled her face. Someone assist me, she screamed. But the wind took her words. Another wave slammed over her, driving her back underwater. She kicked, stretched, and clawed her way back up. Her lungs were burning. Her body shivered uncontrollably with cold. She caught another view of the boat, this time from a greater distance. Too far. No, she whispered. Please no. The storm bellowed in response. She floated for a moment, weary and treading water as best she could. The current circled her, yanking on her clothes and bringing her down inch by inch. She felt herself slipping, not just physically but mentally. Her thoughts became blurry. Her limbs became heavy. She could not give in. She would not. She couldn't let her life end in this way, without seeing her family again. Not without telling RJ how much she loved him. Not without making peace with the decisions she had made. But the ocean didn't care. It continued pulling. Her mind raced with pictures of Poppy holding her as a toddler, RJ laughing in the Forrester office, Finn soothing her after her first modeling preview, Zend joking about how many fittings she'd endured, and Hope telling her she had genuine potential. everyone she cared about, all of the things she still wanted to accomplish. A sharp wave struck her from behind, pushing her forward. She gasped, arms flapping as she struggled to keep afloat. "Help!" she rasped, scarcely audible. A little glimmer of light came through the raindrops, distant, small, flickering. A boat? A buoy? A reflection? She squinted and blinked seawater out of her eyes. It was a boat. Her heart stutters. Hope flowed through her like electricity. "Hey!" she yelled and coughed as water sprayed into her mouth. "Hey!" But the wind ripped her voice to shreds. The light did not change direction. The boat did not slow. She just had seconds before it vanished behind another swell. She needed to signal it somehow, to have her voice break through the storm. She took in a deep, shaky breath and forced the words out with everything she had. "Please, someone, help me right now." 6 words. That was all she could think to say. She only had time before the following wave smashed over her and took her down. The ocean absorbed her scream. She tumbled underwater, bewildered and kicked blindly. Her limbs felt numb and heavy. The current wrenched her around. She could not determine which way was up. Panic erupted in her chest. She fought against the water, attempting to reach the surface. Her lungs were burning. Her vision faded at the borders. Finally, she broke through, gasping and sucking on air mingled with rainwater. She coughed fiercely, attempting to stay afloat, but her strength was disappearing quicker than she could hold on. The light was gone. The boat had disappeared behind the waves. Her heart fell. "No," she said quietly. She treaded water clumsily, her arms scarcely moving. Every breath was a fight. The storm loomed over her, unyielding and indifferent. She wasn't prepared to die. She wasn't prepared to let her narrative finish here, in the dark, cold, and alone. She wanted to scream again, but her voice was disappeared.